Okay, so we're back. I'll just tell you who we've got so far. We've got our Tennessee correspondent, Greg Highlands, a veteran NCIS special agent. And we've got Marcus C. Williams, who is fighting socialists in Western New York.
Yeah.
And I'm John Snedden, a veteran NCIS special agent. We have a special guest this week or this hour that is incredible. I mean, if you've ever seen Crowdsource the Truth, it's incredible. He does not only reporting from the streets of New York City, but he's had some incredible guests. And he also has this thing, I think it's called, we'll have to ask him. It's Evenings with Charles, I think. Anyway, they're mind blowing series of videos, and I think he has a expertise in video and technology. So that'll be a breath of fresh air to us, which we don't have we don't have a handle on technology. Great. Bill, could you bring Jason up? Jason, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate
Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for those kind words.
We've been glued to everything that you do. Those those New York City street walks are just incredible.
Thank you very much.
You do an awesome job, and you also have you interview Charles, right, in the evenings.
Well, yes.
What's his last name? Can we
Charles
say that?
Ortel? Sunday with Charles is the show that I do with Charles Ortel, and he is a very renowned and respected financial investor. And I mean, he's one of these guys who retired at 41 after doing multiple billion-dollar deals, and now just for his own entertainment, he's become a complex fraud investigator. And he really broke a lot of news on the Clinton Foundation and revealed the financial frauds of the Clintons.
Whoa. Wow. So he travels the planet, right? I mean, every time you have a interview with him, he's in another country, right?
Yeah, my mother used to say, rich or poor, it's nice to have money. And that's just it. Charles is a world traveler. He, after COVID and in anticipation of what's imminent here in New York City, the socialist, communist, insane, probable next mayor, Charles left. He, like me, was born and raised in New York, and he's very good at looking at market indications and knowing what is likely to happen. And he now lives in Malaysia, but he does travel quite extensively.
Yeah. I mean, you guys do yourself a favor. If you're an audience member, do yourself a favor and watch those, because they're very enlightening.
Thank you.
I mean, there are things that you guys touch on that people don't even think of that would be very advantageous to look at. I know we've had at least one guest, mutual guest before, and I know it probably went the same way with you, Hadassah Feinberg.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Do you remember her?
I think she's out of her mind.
Yeah. Well, the about Butler.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've had a lot of excellent content. I mean, we're just glued to it. And I'm sure other people are as well. But I just wanted to recently you put out a couple things, and good for you. Charlie Kirk was shot from behind. Prove me wrong. Yeah. And this is now you have two Twitter accounts. You have Jason Goodman, New York City, NYC, right? And then you have Crowdsource the Truth, right?
Right.
So if you get a chance to see his Twitter page at those two addresses, that'd be terrific. But this says, when this first came up, I am John Cullen said it was a bug. This doctor that thinks he solved the case because sound and math tell him the shot came from the front. But here are 3 frames um, from a video that show 500 feet per second projectile about to kill Charlie Kirk. Just so, what's your? That's obviously a big deal, and I know Marcus, as a strong conservative in Western New York, has had a lot of dealings with Charlie Kirk, before the assassination. What can you tell us? What your thoughts are in regard to Charlie Kirk now that you have had a chance to take a look at a couple of things?
Sure. And I'd love to explain that tweet to you guys because it is quite confusing how this evidence has come about. And it requires a basic explanation of how video compression works. And it goes to some of my background, which again, thank you for that really kind introduction. Just to let everybody know how I'm qualified to talk about this. Before I started Crowdsource the Truth and got into independent journalism, I had a long career as a visual effects cinematographer, and I worked in Hollywood. I was specialized in stereoscopic 3D, where you put on the glasses and go to the movies and everything is coming out at you off the screen. So I've invented camera systems and I've developed optical systems, some of which have become international standards in motion picture production for stereoscopic motion pictures.
Wow.
And at the height of my career, I was hired by clients like Disney and Sony and Universal Pictures to tell companies like IMAX and Technicolor and Photochem what they didn't know about digital imaging. Because remember, all of those companies started out and have a long history in celluloid cinema, mechanical aspects of that type of technology. And of course, we're talking about years ago, so I don't mean to disparage any of these companies. And there's a lot of people who have this knowledge, but I've been doing it for many, many years. Since a very young age, I've been working in digital imaging since I was about 13, got my first computer, and the first version of Adobe Photoshop that I used was 1.07. So I've got a lot of knowledge when it comes to digital imaging and image compression and video compression. And the reason why this is important to what we're going to talk about is I don't have extensive knowledge at all in firearms and ballistics and things like that. But of course, the experts who are evaluating this stuff, the ballistics, et cetera, they're doing it through this blurry film, pardon the pun, of digital images that we're getting off of the internet. And so if we don't account for anomalies and artifacts that these digital compression technologies can and do introduce, we might be making judgments that are sort of fundamentally incorrect.
Yeah.
So if I may, I'd like to share my screen with you here.
Yes,
I don't know if you have the ability to go full screen on that, but I'll explain how I arrived at this. Let's call it a hypothesis, because I don't like to make conclusions this early in the investigation, but people can go to my Twitter account, my X account. And as you rightly said, I do have 2 of them. That is not intended to confuse people, or at least not by me. But, through the years, I've been so banned and suppressed and kicked off and had to start new accounts and all this kind of stuff. So we're looking right now at my JG_CSTT, like Jason Goodman, Crowdsource the Truth. And so this is a composite image that I created using 3 frames from 2 separate videos of the same thing. I think you guys are probably familiar with Zeb Boykin. Zeb is a Marine sniper, and he's got a lot of experience in ballistics. I've just met him 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was going viral with his analysis and the videos that he was doing on YouTube about the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I found him to be very insightful. A lot of people obviously did. He had huge response to his videos. So I started communicating with him, and then he appeared on Owen Schroyer's show, and he showed this video. And Owen had the same reaction that I had. He immediately said, "Oh, wow, that looks much higher quality, sharper, et cetera, than many of the other videos that we've seen from this Charlie Kirk assassination." And I was in communication with Zeb, so I asked him about it, and he was kind enough to provide me with the video. And sure enough, it is high resolution. And it does display less compression artifacts than a lot of the other videos that we've seen. But I started to kind of interrogate the video from a forensic standpoint, and I noticed certain things about it. Now, even if you're not a video professional, you've probably made videos on your phone and you download them to the computer. And let's say you're using an iPhone and a Mac. You know that when you put the video on your phone and on your computer, and just double click on that file, you have a .mov, a movie file that automatically opens in a QuickTime player, and you're watching the video, no problem. When I got this video from Zeb, I noticed right away that it didn't behave that way. Double clicking on it did not automatically open it. Now, this was an MP4 file, which is an MPEG-4 movie, but also it should open with a simple double click, and it did not. So I began looking into it with some tools that allow me to analyze metadata of a video and things like that. And I discovered that it was an MPEG transport stream, which is a little bit more of like a broadcast format. And it's not something that's generally easily created on your phone or your laptop computer if you're a casual user. It's just not the type of format that the average person would use. I also noticed that it had a frame rate of 20 frames per second. Now, this was very unusual because phones and most normal cameras in the United States of America are making videos at 30 frames per second. And if you guys do a lot of online analysis of ballistics research, you're going to be familiar with some of these high-speed cameras that nowadays can go up to 2 million, even 20 million frames per second. So photographing ballistic events and high-speed events at 10,000, 100,000 frames per second, it's pretty commonly done if people have the expensive equipment. You can see every reaction of the bullet and the ballistic gel and all that kind of stuff. But a 20 frame per second video, it was just so unusual to me that I really began to wonder how it got to be that way. And so I started talking to Zeb about this on some of the live streams we were doing together. And then almost as if in response to my inquisition, we got another version of this video that was 30 frames per second. And I said, well, that's interesting. It's almost as if someone is trying to counteract our questions with, oh, here's the original video. But here's the weird thing. The way you would get a 20 frame per second video from a 30 frame per second original, there's only a limited number of ways you can do that. You could slow it down so that everything would play at a slower rate, but that would be obvious. The sound would be weird. The motion would look odd.
Oh,
and it didn't do that.
Mhm.
The other thing you could do is you could drop 10 frames per second, but that would make your motion very stuttery and also would look unnatural. And the third way it could be done is through a complex visual effects process called optical flow. But none of these things were evident in this file. It looked like an otherwise normal video, but it was playing at 20 frames per second. And the really weird thing is the 30 frame per second video also played normally. And they were the same duration. They had the same action in them. It was a difficult problem to figure out. So I began to say to myself, well, gee, both of these videos must have come from an original whose frame rate is evenly divisible by both 20 and 30, because we don't have any motion artifacts in the output videos. So that could be a 60 frame per second video. That could be a 120 frame per second video, or it could be a 240 frame per second video. Each of those are evenly divisible by both 20 and 30. And I pretty quickly arrived at the assessment that it came from a 240 frame per second video. And the way I arrived at that was with these three dots. Now, we know I'm not a math expert by a long shot, but I know that 3 points make a line. And this line, it's headed basically directly for Charlie Kirk's head, kind of, just above the base of his skull. Now I'm going to switch to a different view here. This is another application. I've got the original 20 frame per second video loaded up here. And you can see here, this is the middle position of this item that's headed towards Charlie. I'm going to show you the next frame in this 20 frame per second video is that. And what's happened here is the projectile, I allege, has penetrated his neck from the back, probably at the base of his skull. It's deflected downward about 19 degrees, probably off the skull bone itself, and it's popped out the front of his neck. Everybody saw that grisly wound that
Yeah.
people disagree if it's an entry wound or an exit wound, and it's certainly not a 30-06 rifle round. That would have exploded his neck by every estimation. But this appears to be an exit wound. And what's happened is it's come out the front of his throat after deflecting downward off the base of his skull. And it's a projectile that's been fired at, I believe, 500 feet per second, which would comport with the muzzle velocity of a air pistol manufactured by B&W called the M50, or it could be another similar air pistol, but there is an air pistol that can launch projectiles of various caliber at 500 feet per second, and I'll explain how I arrived at that muzzle velocity in a moment. But what appears to be happening here is it's penetrated the back of his neck, below his skull, near his right ear, come out the front of his throat, and it's lost so much of its kinetic energy by penetrating his flesh that it hits his collar, and it's caught in the shirt like a net. And it's caught right there. That's why we have this sort of acute pinching and upward pulling of the shirt. We go to the next frame, and there's some more activity in his shirt that, in my view, seems to indicate, let me back up here. We can see there's some activity down the front of the shirt that seems to look like this projectile has now fallen down the front of his shirt. He's hit, it's caught, it goes down the front of the shirt is agitated, it's moving around, and now I'm not going to play the part where he starts to bleed, but fractions of a second later, Charlie is, fatally injured there, and he starts to bleed.
Wow.
So let me just quickly address how I arrived at 500 feet per second, and this will hopefully explain everything. So again, we've got these three dots. And by the way, this first one and this second one came from the 20 frame per second video. This third one came from the 30 frame per second video. And now remember, we said at the top of this discussion that the original must have been, based on what we're seeing in these two output videos, the original must have been evenly divisible by both 20 and 30. So if we start with a 240 frame per second video, divide that by 12, we get 20 frames per second. We're going to do that by taking the first frame of every 240 frame sequence, and that's going to give us that even moving motion, 1 out of every 12 frames in the video. To make the 30 frame per second video, we divide by 8. 240 divided by 8 is 30. We take the first of every 8 frame sequence to make our 30 frame per second video. And so that results in 2 videos comprised of 2 sets of different frames. So I was able to get the final projectile position from the 30 frame per second video, and these other 2 from the 20 frame per second video. And the other thing that informs me that it's 240 frames per second, while it would be pretty complicated and certainly beyond my mathematical abilities to actually measure what is going on in this 2-dimensional video of something flying through the air where we don't know the focal length of the lens or the distance at which this was photographed, I've put down here this sort of arbitrary scale that just shows us units in this frame. And the thing that's interesting about it is whether this is feet, inches, microns, miles, whatever it is, the distance between the projectile from frame to frame is very close to equidistant, meaning it's traveling at a consistent rate. Now, the other thing is, while we can't accurately measure, we do know that Charlie Kirk was 6'4", and he's seated here. He's kind of slouching. So we're looking at approximately 3 feet of Charlie Kirk's body from seat to skull top here. And when I asked ChatGPT if a projectile were launched at 500 feet per second and photographed at 240 frames per second, what distance would the object travel in 1/240th of a second? And the answer was 2.08 feet. So given that we're looking at about 3 feet of Charlie Kirk, this sure looks like 2 to 2.5 feet between these things to me. And so this is how I arrived at this hypothesis.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
That's very interesting. Jason, and now Greg, who is a retired or a veteran NCIS special agent, was before that was a fast Marine. And he has had, and he still does a lot of competitions. So, Greg, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like it. It sounds very reasonable. It's actually one of, out of everything that I've heard so far, I think that's pretty damn scientific. I followed you with, I played a little bit with the video stuff and editing with the Adobe Premiere package. So I can kind of understand and follow what you're doing. I'm not a real big math guy. I have done some reloading over the years. Specifically, I reload for 308 Winchester, and I know the amount of grains, everything I use, and I know how fast that round travels is around 3,000 feet per second. At 30-06 would be similar. It would travel somewhere probably 28 to 3,000 feet per second. And I totally agree with you that a 30-06 round would have completely separated. There would have been nothing left of the neck.
Yeah.
But I had never considered an air rifle, which they now use for hunting, and I do hunt.
Yeah.
So and they will take down big game. The only thing that in acoustics a liar. I know that acoustics are a liar. You can't base any judgment off acoustics. I know the video when we first played the video that we had, because we were live when the show happened. I thought initially maybe it sounded like a handgun round. I knew it had to be bigger than a 22, but I didn't quite. But then we had another angle later on, and it sounded more like a rifle round. So I don't know about the acoustics. I know that the acoustics are a liar, so I don't really consider that much. But I do, and I don't know a lot about the air rifles, but I do know that they use them for game now. So totally plausible.
Let me address the acoustic question,
if
I may. Sorry to interrupt, but let's first address the acoustic question. I should have said this. I don't mean to say that this hypothesis eliminates. It's clear a rifle of some type was fired, and there's a lot of reasons why that would have been done. I don't think it hit Charlie Kirk at all. The rifle, I allege, would have been fired either directly over the entire campus or directly into the dirt. And the reason is for exactly what Greg said. Whoever perpetrated this knows that there's going to be people out there who have sophisticated acoustic analysis software and can do these crack thump acoustic triangulation calculations to locate where the shot is coming from. Additionally, you knew you were going to have thousands of eyewitnesses. You want to distract everybody. Bang, a rifle goes off behind you. You're going to pay attention to that. And that has shock value to you. So here's one other thing that I think you guys can help me understand, because this is an allegation and a theory. I don't mean to implicate this company or this product. And to reiterate, I'm not saying that this company had anything to do with this at all. I'm just pointing to this as a demonstration of a technology that exists. This is something made by a company called Digital Trigger Technologies that anybody can purchase for $659. This is an item called Digital Trigger, DigiTrigger 2.2, and I'm sure you guys will understand much more than I do exactly what it's intended to do, but I've watched a number of videos made by this company and the guy who invented it, and what I've learned from that is this is an AR-style trigger that you replace on your gun, and inside the handle here, it has a digital component that you can program through USB or whatever, and it has different modes. So if you want to do sniper shooting, you can program it for like a light touch trigger or whatever it is that a sniper is trying to do. If you want one trigger pull to fire 2 bullets, you can do that. The guy even says you can program it for rapid fire and continuous fire, but you have to follow the law within your state. Right. So again, I don't need to be a gun expert or a bullet expert, but I do know from my visual effects work, if we have a trigger that can digitally actuate something, we can synchronize multiple digital triggers to be activated simultaneously. And so I further allege that whoever fired the air rifle had a similar type of digital trigger technology that would have been through Wi-Fi or radio or some sort of wireless communication, be synchronized with the rifle on the roof so that when one gun was fired, both fired simultaneously.
That. Yes.
Mhm.
Oh boy,
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense. How far do you think behind him the shooter would have been when we look at
It's
that?
difficult. It's difficult to say, and I'm absolutely willing to speculate about things when we have enough evidence. But I want to make it clear that I'm speculating about this. I don't have the
Right.
same level of mathematical certainty as far as where the person would have been shooting. But we see that Charlie Kirk, he's seated in a tent that is located on campus, sort of right in front of this tunnel overpass. People can see this woman with the 47 hat. Charlie's tent is right here. So we're on the opposite side of the tunnel looking in towards where Charlie is. And I noticed that there is this perch where, and again, I'm not suggesting that I'm not suggesting that that person standing there is the shooter. I'm just noticing that he's standing there. And
Right.
it's possible, we'd have to go there and evaluate the angle, but it's possible that this location could get the angle to shoot him just under the right ear or at the base of the skull. And it's strange to me that this guy is standing there. I don't know who this is, but people on the internet have said that this is the very same person who removed the SD card from the camera that was situated right
Oh my
behind
God.
Charlie Kirk.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
that's
And there's
crazy.
one other interesting thing about the camera, just one last thing I want to drop on you guys about this. So a lot of people saw this research that I'm sharing with you guys right now, and they said, oh, Jason says the camera behind Charlie Kirk shot him. And to be clear, that's not what I'm saying, because when we go back to this photo, we can see here's the camera and its lens, and we can see that the angle, the trajectory from that camera does not line up with the trajectory of the bullet. And this is another very interesting thing,
Oh,
because I think what this camera would have been used for, this is a targeting assistant. So even if the shooter is on the other side of that tunnel and can't really see the back of Charlie's head, they could have a Wi-Fi feed from this camera, and there's certain products and software that allow you to put like a downrange camera close to the target, far from the shooter, and then looking at an iPad or a phone, you can see the target very clearly on the screen, and it has all kinds of aiming assistance stuff. So it's like a remote targeting system. It's
oh,
incredibly complicated if what I'm saying is correct.
yeah.
Quick
That is
question.
very interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Marcus.
Did you see the video online where they're like, oh, it was a shell casing that fell from where the back of the thing is? Something did fall from that area. What do you surmise that might have been?
I haven't examined that closely, but people who I was looking at comments from that post, they said it doesn't line up with the timing of the shot.
It does.
And I think that it could have been anything. It's the clip that I saw of that was very zoomed in on that event. And one thing that I observe in general is that a lot of people like to, in order to make their point, they like to, screen capture elements of videos and crop them and go in and whatever. And anytime anybody sees that, you should immediately go to the original source video that it came from. Because just like I'm describing how these frame rates can be manipulated, this becomes editing. And it goes back to my days in visual effects. When you're trying to convince someone of an action in video, there's all kinds of editing tricks that you can use, and it becomes like a magic trick. I show you something falling down, and I say, ooh, this fell down from the back of the tent. It must be a bullet casing. I don't think it is.
Me neither.
Wow.
Mm.
Boy, Jason, I mean, not to get off the subject, but I can think of a million body cams that we've looked at that with your expertise, we could really beat the hell out of them. Jesus, man. Holy shit. So
I'm happy to join you guys and do that anytime. I did a lot of analysis of police body cams for the Butler assassination attempt, and I even identified what I believe I had proven was a rangefinder or some other kind of infrared laser inside the American Glass Research Building behind a window at the precise instant that Trump was shot.
I remember that. Oh my God. If you guys are not watching Crowdsource the Truth and Jason Goodman NYC, you're missing out. I mean, the guy does a hell of a job. putting this together and can explain it to somebody that got a C in statistics or a D in math. You know what I mean?
I got a C in math.
Really incredible.
Thank you.
Greg, what are your thoughts on that? I have never seen the DigiTrigger that he was talking about.
Yeah, so I could track you on the video analysis, and the trigger. I'm very familiar with AR-15 triggers. I've actually put a few in. I'm more familiar with the two-stage trigger, which has to deal with the cycling process of the whole mechanism of releasing the hammer to hit the bolt and the firing pin that starts the whole cycle of the rifle. I don't understand what the DigiTrigger would do. How can you explain that?
Well, I mean, again, I think probably my knowledge of what triggers do and how they work is insufficient to speak to you about that. But just from watching the videos of the guy who invented it, and you can program it to do all kinds of different things. It's designed to be customizable. So you could even pull the trigger on the gun and program it so 2 seconds later it fires. Or it's my understanding that when you're doing really long range sniper shooting, even if you wiggle your finger a little bit or you pull the trigger a certain way, like that affects the accuracy of the shot. So I think what it lets you do is, for the sniper setting, it somehow lets you, pull the trigger and have some other way of actually firing the gun so that your physical motion of pulling the trigger isn't happening coincident with the actual firing, so that you can be super duper steady. And it almost makes it like pulling the trigger, the physical trigger, is like another safety on the gun, and it doesn't actually fire until the digital signal tells it to fire.
So in theory, you're saying that this could have been done in concert by essentially one individual.
I think there were a number of individuals involved, but essentially what you're saying is correct. In other words, if you were, let's say, out in the field and I'm up in a tree or something like that, and we're both aiming at the same target, and then you're on the radio to me, and I say, okay, Marcus, I have the laser on the target, and I've physically pulled my trigger. The safety on my gun is released, and its digital trigger is waiting for a signal from you. You have the master trigger, and when you pull, both guns fire.
Both guns fire, yep.
Okay, so Jason, can I ask, we get, we broadcast on LinkedIn too, as well as Rumble and stuff. But we got this interesting comment, and I want to run it by you and see what you think. It says, as you've probably seen, the two men around Charlie Kirk were doing suspicious hand signals, and the man in the khaki military shirt on the left and in front of Charlie was doing something coordinated as well. He had something rectangular under his left shirt sleeve and was doing a pulley motion with his right hand, with his hands, just before the shot was fired. There was possibly a sniper in a window strategically facing Charlie from his right. But it could be you know what I'm saying? All the hand signals and actions by these three men coordinated exactly timing with the first and fatal shot, which also corresponded like a ballet with the words of the man at the microphone. The question itself may have been scripted as a countdown.
I agree. In part.
And then she says, in previous videos, Charlie's team members always had their hands either clasped, and folded or on their sides.
So have we heard of anybody getting a hold of the person that asked the question?
Oh yeah, that guy's been interviewed by Channel 5, which is Andrew Callahan, I think his name is, the same guy that interviewed Hunter Biden about all kinds of crazy, about how great crack is. I don't know if you guys heard that interview, but that guy somehow got a hold of Hunter Callahan. And also there's this left-wing crazy person who goes by the name of Destiny, which sounds like a stripper
Yes.
to me, but this is
Yeah.
some kind of video gamer guy or something. And so he is doing kind of like a Charlie Kirk mockery tour where he goes around and does the same debate style, but he takes the jackass position. And that's called Un-F America. Obviously they spell it out, but if people Google that and look up that I don't know if you guys are down with swearing on the channel, but the Un-F
Yeah, go ahead.
America tour.
We do
So
a
he's got
lot
the
of-
Unfuck America tour. And if you look that up, first of all, when you buy tickets for that, your money is going to Act Blue, which is, I allege, an illegally organized 501c3, 501c4 nonprofit corporation that's conflating political activity with public nonprofit activity in a way that is against the law as far as I can tell. But in addition to that, that kid asking the question about how many transgender shooters there are, Hunter Kozak, I think his name is, he's on tour with this guy Destiny, doing this antagonistic, anti-Charlie Kirk, anti-right-wing kind of thing. So I agree, that kid is very suspicious. But to go back to the question from the viewer, I agree that the security team is acting very suspiciously. That's my pure opinion. And by the way, the things that I say don't reflect any of you guys' opinions. Anybody has any problem with what I say, contact me. I'm not an attorney. None of this is a legal opinion. This is all pure opinion from looking at public domain facts that anybody can look at and derive a different opinion than I have. But in addition to all that weird stuff that your viewer pointed to, I don't agree that there's a sniper in a window up to the right. From what I see, that kill shot comes from in the tunnel or behind the tunnel, 500 feet per second. There's a lot of math and a lot of very good evidence to back that up. But we do see other videos where the security guys are touching their glasses. We can tell by the style of sunglasses. They're wearing Ray-Ban sunglasses. And I think a lot of people know that they have these Meta Ray-Ban sunglasses that can record video. And people have presumed, oh, they're recording him while he's getting killed, and that's so terrible. But there's something that fewer people know, which is that just a few weeks ago, Meta came out with version 2 of their glasses, which in addition to recording video, they actually display video in the glasses. So if that team were coordinating with hand signals and video indicators inside the glasses, or even possibly controlling a remote air gun on some kind of turret in that tunnel, perhaps someone is seeing a video feed from that camera behind Charlie, controlling a gun inside the tunnel or behind the tunnel. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying we know this technology exists. I agree those guys are doing something weird. And there is a moment where somebody seems to activate something. People had presumed it was one of these palm guns, but I find it impossible to presume that somebody, even aiming carefully with one of those little guns, I don't think that's just too precise a shot to just whip out a gun and randomly flick it with your finger and have it go. But if it's a wireless remote that triggers 2 digi-trigger guns, one of which is being aimed by somebody else through these Meta glasses that have an overlay like this of a very high resolution image of the back of Charlie's head coming from a 4K camera right behind him. I know it sounds complicated, but we're talking about technologies that exist. And it seems like this could have been done.
Well, we've seen this type of stuff in movies from years ago with less levels of technology.
Yeah.
So, it's very interesting. And honestly, it's really starts to make you wonder.
Yeah.
What went through, what happened to have to set all of this up? Like this seemed like a pretty orchestrated endeavor.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, here's the thing, Marcus, a lot of people, look, the way I like to investigate anything is I say, okay, what is the evidence we have here? We have videos coming from the internet. Are these videos even of sufficient quality for us to derive any evidentiary value from them? And if they're not, I'm not going to stretch it and try to make it tell me something that it can't tell me. I'll go look for the original video from that person who made this, decimated, cropped, low resolution version. And then once I find the best evidence, I start to go through and try to find what can I determine with certainty from this evidence. So before I got onto this projectile in the video, I had discovered a number of things on other videos that looked to me like UAVs. And I started talking about drones. And so people would say to me, drones. So Israel did it, right? And I was like, well, I don't have any evidence about who did or did not do it. I'm just saying these items are present. And to be clear, I'm not saying Israel did it. I'm not saying Israel didn't do it. I don't have any evidence that indicts or absolves any particular party. I'm just saying we see on video a bunch of guys who work for Charlie Kirk who are touching their glasses and triggering things and doing weird things that is very suspicious. We see this technology all around them. We're aware of these other technologies that exist. Anyone at all could have employed these things. This is not necessarily so exotic. I mean, yeah, you need a couple $1,000 probably, but it's not like I'm saying, oh, this is some plasma powered, imaginary technology that's coming from Marvel Comics or something like that. This is stuff.
Something interesting about it that you just made me think of is, what if it's more of like a compartmentalized event? What if it was many groups working together that didn't really know that they were working together? Like that seems like what's most plausible.
I think that's the case with almost any intelligence operation, sort of inherently. And there's one other piece that, I don't know, maybe you guys have heard about this. This was reported from public FAA radar data.
The airplane?
The ADS-B tracking data from this U.S. Army Bombardier Global 6500. This is one of two new jets in a program called Hades, the High Accuracy Detection and Exploitation System. This is an ISR jet that the Army uses for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And this jet was flying something like 2 miles away. It slowed down to just above its stall speed, something like 125 knots, and it reduced altitude from 38,000 feet to 200 feet off the ground as it did sort of lazy circles over Utah Lake. And separately, there are articles about how the U.S. Army in 2024, I think January, put out a request for a proposal for a system that could launch and retrieve drones from this jet. And I have reason to believe that they achieved that goal. So we've got this very suspicious, highly capable, classified capabilities jet flying around 2 miles away from the university. I've got evidence that there were UAVs flying over the university, pretty coincident with this murder of Charlie Kirk. Now, it's a U.S. Army jet, but Marcus, as you just said, I agree with you. I think intelligence agencies frequently operate in ways that defy allegiance to any particular country, and they work together to do all kinds of clandestine things. So this is the video that I found these drones in. This is a video that was recorded by a guy named Adam Bartholomew, who is just a dad. His son goes to this college, and the guy's a hobbyist live streamer. He's live streaming the event for 19 minutes, and on his YouTube feed, 1 second before Charlie Kirk is shot, he's talking to these kids. And 1 second before Charlie Kirk is shot, his live stream cuts out. He doesn't record the sound or the video of the gunshot, not in his live stream. And I found he had a full recording of this event on YouTube. So I contacted him and I retrieved his original recording. I'll explain how he made that. But in this video, I'm identifying various objects in the sky, pointing out how under high magnification and close scrutiny, we can tell that one's a bird. We're about to get an insect flying by. It's amazing the resolving power of this camera. But here we see what looks like a wasp. Its segmented body flopping around as it flies. We see its wings flapping. I mean, it's amazing resolution, but this is obviously a very small biological creature close to the lens, flying right over this kid's head. It's not a bird off in the distance. And so then, boom, the gunshot fires and everyone turns and starts running. And Adam Bartholomew says, "What was that?" And bravely, he runs over to the ledge. Everybody's concerned about getting shot. He's concerned about covering the action. And again, I don't have any experience hunting or whatever, but when I see birds, they're flying away when guns get shot. Birds aren't interested in human chaos and loud gunshots and buildings. Birds are flying over there by the mountains where there's a lake and fish and other things that birds are interested in. This is also an oddly circular orbit that this thing flies right over the crowd. That to me looks like the orbital path of a reconnaissance drone with its own high-speed camera, just getting intelligence about what's happening on the ground, perhaps to inform that Hades jet. And then we see another, this is the same one in super slow motion. Now there's wiggling that some people interpret as wing flapping, but I believe that is video compression artifacting around the high contrast edges of that object. Then we get another object that is a little too low resolution to exactly make out, but I don't know if you guys can see this over the Zoom call, but it seems to be emitting smoke. I've never seen a bird emit smoke. I do think an electrically powered lithium polymer powered drone that's about to experience a catastrophic failure and burn up might emit smoke, or a hybrid electric gasoline powered drone might emit smoke. And simultaneously with that, we've got this fast mover going from the middle of the frame up to the upper right hand corner, zipping up the frame like some sort of man-made propelled device. And then it or something similar comes back and does another move. It's going up. Now people say, oh, that's a falcon, but I don't think so. I think falcons can tuck their wings back and dive down very quickly, but I've never seen a falcon shoot up without flapping its wings. So again, I can't prove that these are drones, but under careful analysis, these video images reveal certain things. Now, let me just give you one more piece on this, because I got this video from Adam Bartholomew, who runs a YouTube channel and an X account called Life is Driving. And the way I got them was Charlie Kirk was murdered at 12:23 on September 10th. And I was looking around the internet like everybody else for any kind of, evidence I could find, videos, whatever. And immediately I found this guy. His video was going viral, and I went to his YouTube channel and I was watching it. And then I downloaded it because I want to scrutinize it a little bit more closely. And as I was looking at it, I said, wait a minute, this video is only 20 minutes long. He had an hour and something video that I saw over here. So I went back to his YouTube channel and I noticed under the live tab, the video was like 25 minutes or 27 minutes. It's very short. And then under the video tab where he had uploaded a video, it was an hour and 7 or an hour and 9, something like that. So I said, well, now wait a minute. Let's look at the short video. And that's where I discovered that it cut out just at the moment of the gunshot. And what struck me as so weird, people will say, oh, you walk around on these live streams, you can get radio interference. And it's like, look, hey, I know. You commented at the beginning of the video that you see me walking around New York City. I've been doing this for a long time, and I have a lot of experience in doing this. When I'm walking around, I have a bonded link aggregating array that I'm essentially wearing. So I'm using AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile with a fourth phone aggregating the signals so that if any time I lose connection, it switches to the best connection and maintains a continuous stream.
On your walks. Yes.
Adam Bartholomew, despite just being a hobbyist dad, he's an avid technologist and a perfectionist. He wants his live streams to be good. So he uses a similar system to what I use. And the thing that was so strange is he cut out 1 second before. I just said, it's so weird, Adam, because about 2 weeks before this, I have kind of an ongoing beef with this NYPD sergeant who I believe is up to no good. And I saw him in Washington Square Park, and I went up to them and started having kind of what many people might consider a rude conversation with the cops. And when I walked away, this 20-year-old jabberjaw moron kid walks up to me and he says something unintelligible. He's looking at his phone. He's looking at me. He's looking at his phone. And then my live stream cut. But it cut in a way that was very unusual. And I went and looked at the diagnostic log from my phone, and it had crashed the live streaming application. It wasn't an IMSI catcher or a Wi-Fi signal interference device. That requires a lot of power, big battery pack, etc., a big transmitter. This just crashed the application. So I began looking into that. And what I discovered was this company called Oligo IT Security. And they had identified what they call Airborne, which is a wormable zero-click remote code execution exploit that can be launched at your phone. And by zero-click, they mean you don't have to go donate money to the Prince of Nigeria. You don't have to go to a specific website and download malicious software. Somebody just gets within Bluetooth range of you. And if you're using your Apple wireless headphones or any kind of Bluetooth technology, they can launch one of these airborne attacks. And what it does is it overwhelms the Bluetooth receiver in your phone with requests or, bad information, and it can cause the phone to do all kinds of things. And by the way, this is just a publicly known exploit that this IT security company that publishes zero-day exploits so that Apple will update the phone, that's what they know about. I have a feeling the U.S. Army might know about other ones that aren't yet publicly published. So what I think was happening is we have this high accuracy detection and exploitation system. And I think with a high degree of accuracy, it detected Adam Bartholomew and it launched an airborne exploit that crashed his live stream. And I think the purpose of that was whoever perpetrated this wanted to make sure that the only media that was going out was controlled, so that they could give you low resolution, cropped, decimated videos that tell the story that they want told. And it's the same reason why they're releasing 20 frames per second. And then I call that out and they say, 30 frames per second. And now they're screwed, because through their mistakes, I've been able to determine with what I would call a high degree of confidence. Again, this is not proof. Proof is to be determined by the jury, the court, whoever it is that's determining proof. This is evidence, and I believe a preponderance of evidence that should prove what I'm saying.
Well, we've got to wrap, but I want to read this quick. This just came out, and it involving Jason. Oh Christ! And
probably a smear.
Hang on a second. I mean, we have to show this. I don't know what Candace Owens is doing right now, but this is the response, sir. Candace, you absolutely have to get linked up with Jason Goodman of Crowdsource the Truth. He is a professional cinematographer and has top-notch expertise in analyzing videos. He is doing great investigative reporting on Charlie's assassination. He also dug deep into Butler. So, I mean, Jason, what an eye-opening experience. And, you've got to follow him because every day is a new adventure, and it's awesome. So, Jason, thank you very much. We got to have you back.
You got to let us know when you hook up with Candace.
Well, absolutely. And thank you guys so much for having me on. There's one last piece I want to leave you with, because, when I started publishing this information on my main X account here, JG_CSTT, I was getting to a point where every day I had a tweet that was exceeding 1 million views per day.
Yes.
And then I got hit with this warning that it's sensitive content. And now a lot of people are telling me, look, it's gone down from 1 million views. And I'm not trying to say, ooh, social media, I'm getting clicks. I'm just saying, I think this is important information that I want people to see. And now that every single thing that I publish has this sensitive content warning,
God.
Almost nobody can see it. So I'm trying to get this lifted. If Elon Musk sees this video, if anybody has any influence with X and can get this sensitive content, this is what people see when they try to follow Crowdsource the Truth. They can't find it.
Wow.
Ooh.
Yes. Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
You're awesome. And very few people have your expertise. So you put that together with what you're looking at, and it's amazing. So we'll be watching you on the street and Sunday nights with Charles, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Jason, thank you very much. Thank you much.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks,
Good
Craig.
night.
Thanks, Mark.